The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Connected Table Live. We are your hosts, Melanie Young and David Ransom, your insatiably curious culinary couple. Each week, we bring you the dynamic people who work front and center and behind the scenes in food, wine, spirits, and hospitality. We bring them to you, share their stories, and talk issues. And tonight, we're going to be talking to the big fish in a special pond. We've hooked Chef Rick Moonen on the show for our full show, and we are totally stoked. Rick is a restaurateur and cookbook author, and he has been the country's leading advocate for the sustainable seafood movement for the past 25 years, bringing national awareness to this subject near and dear to his heart. In fact, USA Today in 2013 named him one of Earth's power players. He's one of the 5 leaders helping the health of our planet. He's been featured on CNN, Today, Good Morning America, CBS Early Show. He's testified up in Washington and in New York, and he really is the go-to person when it comes to talking about fish. But also important, he is a master restaurateur and chef. We knew him when he was on our coast at Oceana, really rocking things up. Las Vegas really landed him, and his flagship restaurant out there is Rick Moonen's RM Seafood at Mandalay Bay, which we have visited. It showcases his commitment to sustainability without foregoing culinary creativity and innovation. And more recently, in June 2013, he transformed RM Upstairs into RX Boiler Room, a modern gastropub that showcases comfort food redefined with Rick's signature twist. It was named the best new restaurant of 2013 by Desert Companion magazine. But that's not all, David.
Well, Rick is been we've been a big fan of Rick's for a number of years. We knew him really in New York, actually, when he kind of got going. He worked at such great places as La Côte Basque and Le Cirque. He also then was the chef at the Water Club, one of the great restaurants in New York City on the East River, and then also at Oceana before he decided to depart for warmer desert climes, as they like to say. But he's a wonderful chef. We're a great fan of his, and we've known him for so long. Rick, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. Great to hear from you. Thanks again.
And we want to add that you graduated #1 in your class from the Culinary Institute of America, which I know that you're very active in supporting the grads and alums. So awesome.
No, the CIA rocks.
Yes, CIA rocks. And it's the CIA in Hyde Park and Greystone, not D.C. So let's just start at the very, very beginning. What was your path to becoming a chef? Did you come from like a food-centric family, and how did it all end up with your seafood specialty? You don't have to do the long story because we have lots to cover, but just give us a little nibble of how it all started.
Well, I was one of 7 children. Both my parents worked. I was born in Minnesota. Every other sibling of mine was born in a different part of the United States, So, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I lived in Minnesota for a short period of time. My family moved to Lansing, Michigan. So this was like when I was, kindergarten. Across the street from me, there was a farm, and I used to walk through it and really connect with it. Just give me a stick and leave me outside all day, and I was just a happy kid, Later on in my life, science and math and the intrigue of nature all just kind of came together and excited me, And during this journey of life of mine, I became some environmentalist, industry leader, chef, and then celebrity chef, which kind of confused me because I never went into the culinary schools thinking that there was a celebrity opportunity as I exited. But it became available in the 90s,
Well, you were normal. You were normal because nowadays everybody goes to school thinking they're going to become a celebrity.
Right. It was more of a vocation, It's just something that excited me. I was very, very hyperactive child, ADD, running around, going crazy. My mom would come home and she had to cook dinner. She would drag me into the kitchen because she didn't trust what I might be doing in the other room. She'd give me things to small tests, stir this, do that. And it really, really, really changed my life because there was a lot of science that would go on. You're stirring a pudding, and all of a sudden it thickens before your eyes. What just happened? I want to know, So, yeah, I mean, throughout all of this moving around, I ended up in Flushing, Queens, went to school, wanted to become, so and I graduated high school in 1974, the normal years, the normal craziness. Went to 2 years of community college, and then I decided I wanted to become a dietitian at age 20. So I I applied for the CIA in 1976 to become a chef. But when I went in, I didn't have a clue what hollandaise sauce was, a shallot was, or we didn't eat fancy food like that. That's all new to me. And I ended up graduating first in my class because I paid for every penny of my culinary education. My family couldn't afford it, And when I went away to culinary school, my number one fear in life, for sure, was public speaking. I was so scared to get up and start to talk in front of people, And again, back then there was no celebrity, none, you didn't have to worry about it. But I got the opportunity to stay on and work in the French restaurant that was at the CIA at the time called the Escoffier Room, and got my butt kicked around by a really classically trained chef that instilled in me a respect, an environmental connection, realizing that the food that comes from our world is a privilege to get, and that it's our responsibility to take very good care of it, as well as the place that it came from, in order to maintain its perpetual supply to our voracious hunger and growth on this planet. And somehow that was instilled in me in the late 70s. I don't know how, it just did. So when I got my first job at La Côte Basque, working with Jean-Jacques Rachou, who supported American chefs. Okay, just understand, 1980, every restaurant in New York or anywhere that was considered fine dining was French, and that's it.
Well, that's so true. Yeah.
And so here I am with Charlie Palmer, Todd English, Thomas Keller, all kinds of chefs that went on. It was, the magical years, when food started to go in a different direction. Worked as the saucier for 2 years at La Côte Basque. Wanted to get out of New York. Ended up going to Key West, Florida. And then I was a sous chef down there. I wasn't ready to be a chef. I fell in love with the ocean, but the executive chef and the general manager were boyfriends, and they ran away with each other. And overnight, I became instantaneous shake and bake. You're the chef now. Ugh, not ready. So I mean, I couldn't wait to get back to New York, back to where I came from, where things were a little bit more comfortable. But while I was down in Key West, I do recall something very important. I got a Bon Appetit magazine delivered to me, and it was a chef on the cover. It was Jean-Jacques Rachou. And I looked at it, and up to that point, I realized that all covers of every magazine that had anything to do with food had food on it, not chefs, not people, not personalities. And now it kind of dawned on me at that moment that chefs started to become more of a personality. They're considered the experts on food, the teachers of how we consume food. People starting to realize that food affects our health, our family, our environment. There was more of a realization of it's not just dinner, lunch, or breakfast. There's more to it. And we were the gatekeepers, So after 9 months of being in Key West, I couldn't wait to get back. I became the saucier at Le Cirque. What an amazing job. And that was, just another one of the big names in the city. That's when it was on 65th Street. Stayed there for 2 years, and then started getting antsy. What am I going to do now? So I ended up, I took my first chef job was at Le Relais on Madison Avenue, 1984.
Oh, my goodness.
Holy smokes. Bustling, crazy, busy, lunch, dinner, like a freight train hit you. Learned a lot about what to do and what not to do, So I left there, and then the following year I ended up getting involved in a group called Bar Louie and Century Cafe. Learned a lot about, the intricacies of making money. Not just cooking, it's not just a craft, it's not just an art, but you have to be profitable. In other words, you had to know how to control labor costs and food costs. Interesting.
Well, you need to know how to balance the checkbook, exactly.
Oh, otherwise you just have an expensive hobby.
That's right.
You can cut the middle out of a piece of expensive fish and serve it to everybody, and you're a genius. You've thrown everything else on the ground, you're not making money.
Right.
So after going through that regime and learning a lot, and this is back in the day when music videos are playing on the wall. People are really starting to become more and more. That's when I think foodieism started. If that's a word, if I can make it up.
Yeah.
In '87, I went to Chelsea Central to consult with Charlie Palmer. It's a tiny little restaurant down in the Chelsea area, and that's when I got my first New York Times review from Brian Miller. I was like, oh my goodness, 2 stars. You know, and anything that was said negatively, it was like somebody stabbing me in the heart. You know, because it meant the world to me. You know, so I got approached by Buzzy O'Keefe, who owned the Water Club and the River Cafe. Charlie Palmer's my good buddy over at the River Cafe. He said, Moonen, looking for people, a chef over at the Water Club. Talked to Buzzy O'Keefe. It's a $12 million a year machine on the East River. You know, I'm making a decision to leave the Water Club and go over to my own little restaurant called Chelsea Central. You know, Oceana. Excuse me, I've got so many places. And Oceana, here it is, seafood restaurant in 1994. Didn't have any really big recognition for you know what it was. I went over there, and for some reason, 1994 was the magical year. That was the year that the Food Network started. You know, actually, it was November 23rd, 93. Food Network started. People thought it was crazy to have an entire network dedicated to food. They're going to fail. That's going to be crazy, you know. But there I was. I was the first guest on Robin Leach's show. Donna Hanover, David Rosengard, and all these names that we all can like, you know, reminisce about. That's where it started. It was insanity, you know. And I had already been involved sort of as an activist because I was invited down onto the steps of City Hall with Rudy Giuliani trying to tell everyone, all the chefs in the city, thank you, thank you, thank you. Tourism is up. You guys are great. We love you. And I got interviewed by 1010 Wins Radio about genetically modified foods. And what the heck is that? Well, they told me about it. So, okay, yeah, I'm Chef Rick Moonen. I'm at the Water Club. You know, I think it's a big, you know, we have a bigger need for organic foods. Might be a great technology, but there's no reason to tamper with our food. Bam. Next thing you know, I'm a spokesperson for genetically engineered foods, starting chefs, starting coalitions, gathering like-minded opinion leaders in the industry to start saying something out about, you know, we want our food pre-market safety tested. We want to have it mandatorily labeled so that we know what our guests are eating when they ask us, hey, this is a nice tomato salad. I'm allergic to fish. Ooh, there's a flounder gene in there. I didn't know it because no one told me. That kind of mentality didn't make sense to me. So I established myself at an early time in my career to being connected to our food and where it comes from and understand it has an effect on our environment. It's not just flavor. Our customer and our guests have more and more concerns about their diets. Chefs had to learn about, you know, everything that someone might be, the newest trend of diet that might be out there. So the term celebrity chef really didn't start till the later 90s, I think, you know.
Yeah, but you also, chef is activist. You're also, forget celebrity, you're chef activist chef, which I think is even a bigger role because I think chefs as activists really started taking hold in the mid-90s. I mean, you're one of them. Tom Colicchio is another one. I mean, there's a slew, but you really kind of like led that way.
I did. I gathered them, and we had our first press conference at the Water Club. And I remember, you know, Florence Fabricant walking up to me afterwards and just said, "What are you guys doing?" She didn't understand it. It confused her. You know, we were, you know, getting involved with politics and bigger subjects outside of just, you know, what were you going to garnish your salad with to be, progressive and cool. And it was like an interesting time frame because I never really gave it much consideration. It just seemed like the right thing to do. You know, and then there was a point where I'm sure there were chefs who would see me walking down the street crossing over because they wanted me to tell them to take Chilean sea bass off their menu or something else. What a pain in the neck, Moonen. But here we are today, you know, realizing that, we got issues. We got major issues.
We got major issues. And I could hear Florence going, Rack, what are you doing?
100%. That killed me. I was like, I didn't know how to answer her. I'm standing
Why
next
is chef
to,
doing that?
I never would have done it if it wasn't for an activist named Jeremy Riff. I mean, he was a real food activist, and he stood there and he answered all the questions about genetically engineered foods. He just wanted chefs to go out there and say, look, our customers come to our restaurants with a great amount of trust. What we do for a living, they eat, they consume. It becomes part of who they are. And now they're more concerned about how it's being caught. They heard that while you're catching these tuna that you're putting on your menu, you're killing dolphins, and dolphins are cute. You know, people don't generally hunt those squishy, gooey fish, but you know, when it became something that kind of hit them a little bit harder, it became more of a concern of a general consumer. And so Give Swordfish a Break became a gigantic success as a campaign. You know, I was involved when I started over at Oceana. I mean, that was around the time where Laura Pouillon, you know, who was an organic restaurant in D.C., calls me and says, Moonen, you know, these people from Sea-Watch and the National Resource Defense Council have this campaign called Give Swordfish a Break. It's a big problem with, you know, within 5 years, commercial, you know, the swordfish from the Atlantic Ocean will be commercially extinct. I'm like, wow. I go to the fish market all the time. I have been when I was at the water club every single week, and I saw swordfish shrinking in size, becoming more and more infrequent, you know, in consistency. What was going on? You know, didn't read The Perfect Storm yet and realized these guys have to go much further out because they're overfished. Sure. So I stood up for it. I became the poster child for that because it was me, Eric Repair, Frenchman, Nora Pouillon, an Austrian, and Lydia Bastianis, Italian. Heavy accents, especially back then. And there's Rick Moonen. Yo, Rick Moonen. Yeah, I buy fish down at the market and they're getting smaller. It's a big problem. Oh, God, we love your sound bite. Bam! Instantaneously slapped up on the board. I wasn't looking to take this job, you know, but then I'm just like, yeah, well, it's the way it is, guys. You know, we just have to use some other species. You know, we, the big, you know, top of the food chain, you know, Homo sapien sapien, yeah, we're going to eat nothing but the biggest and the best. Yeah, but we're loving a few top species that we all fell in love with to death. And I grew up in a family of 7, like I said. My parents, Catholic. We eat fish every Friday, otherwise you go to hell. Okay, I don't want to go to hell, I'll eat fish. All right,
you may go to hell if you eat these species because you're going to kill them. What are these 5 species that we're all overeating that you say will be extinct by 2048 if we don't watch it?
Well, there's obviously your tuna. There's the number 1 selling fin fish in the world, salmon, the wild species. There's bass. There's I don't know what are the other. I mean, I think the other 2 really depend on where you're from. You know, there's 2 local species. What's that?
Snapper and cod.
Snapper and cod, exactly. Cod is already extinct. You know, the North Atlantic, the cod that built America is gone. You know,
they're getting it out of the Alaskan waters in the Pacific now, I think, right?
Right, but that's Pacific. Yeah. That's a different specific
totally different species.
To be correct, and that's why
it's scrod. And is it scrod and cod? Are they the one and the same sort or a different species? Because when you go to Boston, it's scrod. And I never heard of it.
I love it. Scrod is just a baby cod. And really, that's all it is to me. You know, it's just like, okay, you want to get into conversations, you better have a couple hours because we can start talking about shrimp and prawn. What the heck is the difference? That's how you want to market it. Same thing. They're both cockroaches of the ocean. Everybody loves them. You just have to call them something special. And that's the name game problem.
You know, I want to pick your brain about shrimp for a minute. There's so much shrimp sold in the U.S. now. A lot of it's farmed over in Southeast Asia. There was a big article that came out last week that said that pig feces had been approved as a food for farmed shrimp. Oh, wow. And it just blew my mind to think about things like that could even happen, and that shrimp then comes to the U.S. What is the practice that's going on with shrimp farming, and what can we do to make it better for ourselves these days?
Well, there's something called closed containments, recirculating aquaculture systems that work very well with shrimp. I mean, they're better for the environment, but to be perfectly honest with you, I think that they don't have the same flavors of wild species, such as a good Gulf wild.
A good Gulf or a good Carolina shrimp.
Yeah, Carolina Gulf, awesome.
That is the standard in which I compare all other shrimp in flavors and textures. And there's a lot of different shrimp farming techniques that are being implemented. Thank God. Aquaculture is getting much better due to the pressures of big assessment programs and support by the food community saying, hey, you know what? We're not going to eat that stuff because it's not good for me and it's not good for the environment. It took a long, long time to finally get that voice loud enough where it motivated the big companies to start making changes, but they are. Not everybody, but here's the situation. we're at a critical point right now where those that are doing a better job need to be supported, recognized, and applauded. And chefs can take that stuff and they can make it taste great because that's what we do, right? And then everybody else is going to go, wow, look at those guys. They're taking off and they're doing it right. I think I should do it too.
And I think
my theory.
Yeah, and I think you're right. There are a lot of sustainably, I guess it's what you call sustainably farmed fish farming programs out there now, because those people that have been doing it commercially and seeing, I guess, their profits start to fall because people don't want to have necessarily that fish come into their market or onto their plate, or a chef won't want to use it because they're looking for a better flavored opportunity, are starting to look in that direction now too. Because wild is tough to do, farmed to death, where you've got 1,000 salmon in a small enclosure isn't good for the fish or the environment. Yet there is a way to do it sustainably, where you've got kind of a low fish to enclosure quotient, and it actually can be done well, and then you're also still getting good, healthy fish that are farmed.
Well, you look at both sides. I try to keep an open mind when I have this consideration, and I try to let it all sink in and see how I really feel about it. Because you got a business, aquaculture. Right now, today, as we speak on the air right now, more than 50% of what's being consumed from the oceans come from farms, and that's just the way it is. So we have to make sure that that's being done better. Wild is certainly the best, but there's just not enough out there to keep up with the hunt. We've destroyed their environment. By pollution, by killing the area that they need to live in. We grab all the plants and we drag heavy things across the ground. It's like clear cutting a forest, right? To get a deer for dinner. Now that's ridiculous, right? Why would you destroy an entire forest to chase down a deer? Well, that's what they're doing for fish. But it's just you don't see it because the water's nice and shiny on top and it reflects the light. It's beautiful. I mean, it's great down there. No, not so much. So so aquaculture is an incredibly important science and need. I can't wait to see to the point where we're doing it better, which we are, and I'll explain a little bit about a few things that I think are real exciting. And then we just have to figure out how to add some flavor into that, because that's the last thing. Because it's scientists and investors that start up these operations, and they forget about flavor. Hello, chefs are standing on the sidelines going, I want to support this, but this really is not that great.
Well, I think they're kind of a lot of times when they enter into that field, they're thinking about, how much fish can I sell and how fast can I get it, and how fast can I get it to market, much like the chicken industry did for so long. And then people started saying, well, our chicken doesn't have any flavor. What can you give us that's better? And then they start giving you the no antibiotics and the farm raised and the cage free and all that.
Same thing is going on. Right. Don't make me talk about pork. I'm pissed off about pork. It used to be tasty, now it sucks. I mean, generally. Now, So now they're integrating. Now, here's the funny part. This is what makes me laugh. For so many years, we're screaming out support of big organizations like the Marine Stewardship Council, Seafood Watch, yada yada, who are the benchmarks of really making sound decisions about sustainability and the health of our oceans and our world. Is now they're looking at their fish farms stress level. They're putting way too many. Lighten up a little bit, fallow it, let it recover for a year. Those are great things. Use native stocks, rotate the crops. Put it in a place where it has good tidal movement so that there's cleansing of the effluent, the byproducts, which are really bad. No GMOs. Okay, that's easy. All right, we'll just get our fish, make sure fish and fish out ratio, not so easy in many cases. In other words, these are carnivores we're dealing with. You're farming carnivores. You're farming lions. All right, let's put it on land for a second. Where are you going to feed the lions? Dogs, cats, animals, they need protein. You got to feed them something. So it's the same thing. If you're going to feed a fish and it takes 5 pounds of other fish to make 1 pound of that fish, bad ratio, because those other fish that then have to turn into the Purina fish chow, other fish need to survive too. Everybody's got to live well in this little environment that was naturally created called the ecosystem. We meddle with it as the, high end of the food chain, champions, which we don't do a great job. But what we're doing better, and this is exciting, is we're figuring out how to do less stress in there, so you don't need antibiotics because they're not getting sick as much. You don't need the hormones to make them grow because they're doing a great job. But there's something called integrated multi-trophic aquaculture. IMTA. What is that? All right, IMTA is when you're taking different layers of the food chain and you're allowing them to work together to help each other. In other words, you're letting that bug clean up the sea lice on the outside of that, and you're letting that happen the way nature does it. The animals survive without men getting involved. How do they do it? So that is the new science. Let's just see how nature does it, rather than us trying to force a chemical or a different situation into the situation.
Sure.
So they're taking salmon farms, for instance. Next to the salmon farms, because there's a lot of byproduct, they're planting kelp. Kelp loves the byproduct of a salmon farm, and it grows like crazy, and it's really, really healthy. And what eats kelp? Abalone, mussels, all kinds of bivalves and cephalopods and all sorts of long scientific names. But bottom line is, you got delicious food that grows off of the kelp. The kelp grows off of the salmon. The salmon is great if you don't have it too. IMTA, Integrated Multi-Trophic Aquaculture. So that is the way of the future. You heard it here. It's going to be if we can continue to incorporate that type of mentality, and there are large organizations doing it. I'm an ambassador for an Atlantic salmon farm that's doing a great job, and the brand is called True North. And I'm sorry if I'm plugging myself, but it's what excites me, because they are a company that are taking strides and steps to doing things so much better, with low density. They have cameras down below making sure, the feed is not being wasted, because that costs money anyway, but that feed also turns into the effluent that's bad. When they do have naturally occurring, sea lice situations, all fish have sea lice, but they usually drop off. Well, when they're so high in concentration because of a open net pen farm, they have this thing called a well boat. A well boat, yeah. Well boats are these gigantic boats that are like a large holding tank, seawater that has been treated with some light solution of hydrogen peroxide. They just swim the fish through it. Whoosh, everything just all the sea lice strip away. No need to use any chemicals that might affect other crustaceans in the area, because a louse is a crustacean. Anyway, I could talk forever about this stuff, and I don't know how intriguing it is. It actually puts people on an anxiety level, a higher anxiety level. Like, how am I going to wall this?
Well, but it's important.
But it also should make people want to know where their seafood comes from more,
right?
And make them more aware of what's actually going on, because it's certainly, even some of the things you've said to me and Melanie today, we've done our research on the subject prior to the show, but you've told us stuff that we don't know as well. So hopefully it'll just keep the conversation opening up even more.
Well, which leads me, I have a question, Rick, for people who want to know. We're big fans of the Monterey-based Seafood Watch app, but if people want to know about companies that have sustainable practices and products, what are some resources and websites that you would recommend? I know I'm in the vegetable area, but what about the seafood area?
Well, you already mentioned the gold standard. That really truly is seafoodwatch.org. Right? That's your website. Download the app. And the reason I say that is, and believe me, I'm not on their board. Actually, I am. I'm on their advisory board. Blue Ribbon Task Force. It's a group of chefs that come together every year and try to figure out how we can have a deeper and more effective penetration of the mentality of sustainability. You can't just go around saying, everybody get the Seafood Watch and follow it, because that would probably work. Because 10 years ago, there was a 50 different organizations, government, non-government, environmental, scientific-based, all different. And none of them were working together very well. They really weren't. And it's frustrating me, because I'm trying to come on, guys, I'm trying to play kumbaya. Everybody hold hands. We all really want to have an effect. We want to change the world. We have to do this together. And they're looking at me like, it's so fragmented, because money, grants, very confusing decision process, being responsible and sustainable. Seafood Watch has effectively created a partnership program with all of them, and it's all utilized and integrated for them to come down to the green, red, and yellow system of green being great, yellow being good alternatives, but there's still stuff that aren't perfect. We're still working towards getting it into the green. And the red, just flat out bad news. We've overfished it. We love too much. The environment's destroyed. Whatever reasons, and scientific or otherwise, it's all in there, But there's other places. There's other people. There's aquaculture. There's a BAP, Best Aquaculture Practice, BAP. Right? Okay, we're going to throw some acronyms at you now, so get your pens out, everybody, because that's where it gets you. Oh my goodness. Seafood Watch, easiest, most comprehensive. BAP for aquaculture. There's different layers of it, but Best Aquaculture Practices, when they get approval from them, pretty darn good. And the Marine Stewardship Council, the MSC, another, started in England, incredibly complicated and thorough process in which you are guaranteed the origin of that fish. If it's MSC certified, you know exactly where it came from, and you know that it's coming from a healthy population. They don't take all the other considerations into factor, GMOs or environmental destruction and all of that. That's more of a Seafood Watch task or that function. But MSC and BAP and Seafood Watch are the top three. I could give you 20 more, but you'll forget them all. So let's start with that.
Well, there's certainly good places to start. Exactly. Yeah. I have a question for you. As we're sitting here chatting, I wonder if you could give us a thought on how does the fishing industry itself address the concept of sustainability and the fact that a lot of stuff has been overfished, et cetera, because, it's their livelihood. They have to make a living fishing. So obviously they need to be able to balance that aspect of their industry and their lives as well. How do they address things like what we've been talking about?
It is not an easy process because here's what goes on. For instance, let's just talk about the Atlantic cod fishery. This country was built on cod. The people from Europe came over on small wooden boats, floated over this way because of the high concentration of fish.
Absolutely.
That they could just scoop it out of the water, splay it open, throw salt on it, air it, sun dry it, bring it back to Europe, and then everybody's eating fish all the time. Bacala. Ooh, every European country has bacala. Guess where that cod came from? Right here. The Georges Banks, USA. Thank you very much. All right? But we collapsed that industry. Ooh. Kind of just, let's ignore that. Let's not let our children know about that. That's not in the history books, right?
Right.
So, but you got fishermen that have got generations of successful building a family, a lifestyle, and everything about going fishing. So they're pretty stubborn. They don't really take change all that well. They don't accept, NOAA telling them that you can't fish this year or this fish at this quota anymore because they're endangered. And they look at them like, it's not endangered, it's just a bad year fishing. Next year's great, don't worry. All right, so I want to kind of use a current success story as an example, and it's the West Coast ground fishery. All right, these are not ground fish as in making hamburgers out of ground fish. These are fish that live near or on the bottom of the ocean. All right, on the West Coast, Pacific Ocean. All right, and in 2000, they were seen as federal disaster was declared on the fishery because they were being caught faster than they could replenish their populations, and overfishing basically devastated the ocean floor habitat the way they went after them. So in 2000, and I'm talking about 90 plus different species of fish are now being told federal disaster. That's a lot of fish. And they're rockfish, and flatfish, roundfish, sharks, all kinds of species. 50 of them being rockfish, which are just so delicious. I remember buying them in New York. You get rockfish from the East Coast, yellow-eyed rockfish. It's fantastic. 12 different kinds of flatfish, like Dover sole, petrale sole, sand dabs, blah, 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 and lingcod, sablefish, okay? All of these fish were declared a federal disaster in 2000. Did it make big news? How many people can raise their hand that are listening to this right now that can say, oh, yeah, I remember that? I guarantee 5, maybe out of thousands. So, because there was in basically in over a decade, the fishery had been on a new recovery system. It's a remarkable, innovative collaboration between the fishermen, the regulators, and the conservationists. Okay, just to get their attention, took the fact that there's a problem. 2000, 2001, 2002. This really sucks. Our fishery, nobody's buying our fish. We're not making the money we used to make. Let's start to have a few meetings and talk. And that's what motivates them. Unfortunately, it's after they get to people big changes, such as oil spills in certain parts of our Gulf, or this or that, or collapse here. So here we go, 2004, bad news. But the fishery is currently managed by a nation of quotas. They've set better quotas, area restrictions, closures at certain times, gear restrictions so that the fish that are untargeted can be released, and federal observers are on these boats. It's something called the catch share program, right? So catch shares are like when the fishermen are now in charge of the health of the fisheries. In the future, their families can grow and enjoy it more. So they're held responsible. So it's not as much of a fishing derby. So what happens is the government would regulate. They'd say, okay, there's X number of, they're not doing that great this year, right? Let's just say that they're a striped bass, which isn't a very good example, but I mean, something that everybody can kind of grasp on. Striped bass, 20,000 tons this year is all we can catch, whereas previous years it was 80,000. Everybody's like, whoa, that sucks. But now, but they say, okay, now you can open up the fishery. We'll open up June 1st and then June 20th. That's it. And then once we've hit 20,000 tons, we're done. It becomes a derby.
And then that's
fishermen now have.
And that's a way for them to keep a limit on how much is being taken out. Then.
Yeah, right. That's the history, past history. Right. And what would happen is fishermen now have to make all their money in one because that's how long the government told them they can fish it. So what happens? They catch like crazy. They can't consider the environment that much anymore because the next boat's going to do it, and they're going to do. It's stupid. The fish get thrown in. They don't get handled as well. They go to the market. It's a glut on the market. They don't get the price they want. Chef get the fish, yeah, great, and they get a decent price, but for a short period of time, and it's not handled the way they would normally want it to be handled, and then it's gone. That sucks. Give it to the fishermen. Say, look, you can fish as long as you want, and guess what? And within that month, that there's 12 days out of that month that are horrible, terrible conditions. It's hurricane season. It's treacherous.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Have you seen the perfect? All these movies. The Deadliest Catch and stuff. It's not an easy business to begin with. Now, when someone says you got a narrow opportunity to catch this year, crazy. So catch became guys, supply and demand. Go catch your fish when you want to. Catch with this gear. It's a lot better for the environment. You don't have to drag heavy things along the bottom and destroy, so they can come back stronger next year. And they've been investing. So now, 2015, rock fishery, right? Let's just say 2014, the West Coast ground fishery have MSC certification of 13 of their species of groundfish. And Seafood Watch also rated 39 species, 39 best from green or yellow from red. And some of them went straight from red to green. So here's a fishery that's doing a great job. That They're having success now, and it's totally undervalued. The fish are delicious, but now it's up to the media to bring that information out into the general public, so that people can eat more with more diversity, alleviating the pressure on the top five, and then that fishery can become more of a success. And I'm sorry it's a long answer, but it was a great answer, and I couldn't wait to jump on it.
No, it's a great answer. It's a great answer, and it actually leads me to have two comments and questions about it. Knowing that you said it's up to the media and education to help educate the consumer, I mean, it's the chef's responsibility to get the right fish, the best fish on the menu, but it's the media's job to communicate and help educate. And there are a couple of issues. One is some fish, and I was doing some research before the show, just really nobody wants to eat because they don't like the name of it. That's why Patagonian toothfish became Chilean sea bass. And I just found out that orange roughy is really called slime fish. And as I said before the show, slime head. And there's probably others like it. So we know that there's got to be some massaging of the fish so people make it sound palatable, like sea urchin was whore's eggs. But two, what are some fish that we should think about trying that maybe we're scared to because we're scared of how to prepare it, or we don't like the name, or what are some better options?
I love what you just asked, because I have my own little analogy here. You know, you and I, we've all gone through this in our careers. Remember these tomatoes? Remember tomatoes? There was just plum tomatoes and beefsteak tomatoes, and that's it.
And that was all there was to it.
Tomatoes.
Yeah, now there's like
There's 50,000 kinds, and now we're starting to learn the names of them. They're cool. You know, that's fun. I want to do that with fish. Let's just say with rockfish. I mean, you've got dark blotched rockfish, rough eye, split nose, thorny head, widow, yellowtail, and then there's some fun called chili pepper and other names, which should be the easy in. It's about just Come on, let's just have some fun with it. The reason the names of these fish are so horrible for marketing is because fishermen made them up.
Oh, well,
Right.
those dirty men, they're alone at sea all the time. No wonder they have names.
On the boat, they were trying to figure out how to differentiate them from each other.
Exactly. I got a couple of drums.
Going,
I got
you
two
poor
drumfish, some slime heads, a couple of toothfish. Those are not good marketing names. So there's some leniency in the renaming to get people to be cool about it. But before that happens, it doesn't matter what the names are, because the names will always be somehow someone will add the word perch or bass or something to make it a snapper, to make it sound greater. But it needs to be accepted. We need to understand that we have to eat lower on the food chain. When you eat lower on the food chain, and I'm not meaning you have to eat anchovies or sardines or mackerel, although they're delicious. There are other species that are corvina, chili pepper, pollock. No, who's heard of pollock? Everyone's eaten it. It's every fillet of fish you ever had in your life. But American pollock is really, really good. Catfish,
Yeah, it is.
Santa Barbara prawns, cobia. There's so much out there to just switch up your diet a little bit, which will bring on some relief of pressure on your tuna, your salmon, your bass, your snapper, your grouper, your the guys that are like going, come on, give us a break, dudes. We want you to try this guy down here. He's pretty tasty. I just ate his sister. La la la. That's just the way it is. And it's going to bring a world of change on the wild species. And as we start to recognize and branding such as True North as a salmon, a farmed Atlantic salmon. I grew up on farmed Atlantic salmon. I know that they're doing a much, much better job because it took me a year of before I became an ambassador. I said, let's see what you're doing. I want to put my name on something that I don't believe in.
Right.
Well, there's somebody that's doing a great job. And you know what? So there's something we haven't hit on here. There's 7 billion of us rotating right now. We're going to 9. How are we going to do it? Food security. There's the World Expo in Milan this year.
Right.
What's the topic? What's the theme of it? Feeding the planet. It's all about waste. It's all about being smarter about how we eat, knowing more about where our food comes from, and that chefs do it. Chefs try to translate it into great tasting cuisine to make it exciting and fun. Mm-hmm. But the consumer needs to have a better understanding of what they're purchasing and how their wallet makes a big, big, big difference in the future health of our environment. And that's really what it boils down to. I'm not here to beat a dead horse. At the end of the day, I want everybody to eat great food. I can't wait to talk about new flavors and exciting things. That's what I do for, my career. That's what I wake up for.
Well, why don't we talk about that a little bit? As much as we love chatting about sustainability, and Lord knows we could talk about that all day. Why don't we talk a little bit about RM and what your philosophies are there, and why you moved it from New York to Las Vegas and things like that? Because it's a fabulous restaurant, and you've really made a great hit out in Las Vegas with it, and one of my favorite places to go. So tell us a little bit about its philosophy, but more importantly, why in 2006 did you want to move it from New York to Las Vegas?
Well, I was approached to consider an expansion concept out in Mandalay Bay by Clark Wolf. Clark, a well-recognized industry hospitality consultant and leader in many, many different ways, back to the AIWF days, American Institute of Wine and Food. But I felt the need for a change myself, and he said, Moonen, I got this space in Mandalay Bay. That's I'm thinking that it's about time that seafood started to be introduced into the food scene in Las Vegas. And I'm like, wow. Yeah. Charlie Palmer that I grew up with, we worked together like Code Boss. He's killing it at Oriole at Mandalay Bay. They want me to go to Oriole. I'm sure. Fly me out. Boom. 17,000 square feet. Of like opportunity, gigantic. What am I going to do? I'm going to move out here. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to move out here. They supported me. Mandalay Bay put in $7 million into a multi-tiered, two layers, 17,000 square foot seafood mecca for me to put my name on. So basically, it was an offer I couldn't refuse.
No kidding.
It was a big opportunity for me to be a big fish in a limited amount of water and still carry the message of sustainability into this environment. And what a unique environment it is.
It really is.
I mean, it's an extension of LA. Yes, it would never be here without Los Angeles. Supporting it every single weekend. But it's also Canadian are here all the time. Texas, all of Midwest, New York, you name it. They're in here for a convention for some time or another. So what an opportunity to have the world come to you.
Yeah.
In your foothold of sustainable flavor and changes. I couldn't say no. I mean, I love New York. I miss the Big Apple. I always consider myself a New Yorker. We go up a coffee. What are you going to do? Hey, how you doing? That's never going to go away.
You're the only Minnesotan I know that says yo. So,
but you know what, New Yorkers, it's getting harder and harder to run a restaurant in New York City, as we see many of your colleagues experiencing now. So, and it seems like Las Vegas just has been opened its arms and its pocketbooks and lured some really great fish. And look who's swimming around, and you're doing great. And you have this gastro pub too.
Yeah. That was fun. So upstairs, the upstairs portion of my restaurant was the fine dining part. That's what defined me. 3-star New York Times, 5 times in New York between, Oceana, Molivos Water Club, and my own restaurant RM. Mm-hmm. So that's awesome. Come out here, open it up, have your fine dining, and that's going to be it. 2009, 2010 said, not so much, Moonen. We're going to give you what you call a recession. Oh,
yeah,
this sucks.
Interestingly enough, Las Vegas also felt that. I mean, everybody thought it was kind of impervious to it because there were restaurants still opening, but Las Vegas really got hit hard.
And Las Vegas was bulletproof to so many other things, even big problems, even with 9/11. People were so depressed they went to Vegas to drown their sorrows because there's no place to do it. I mean, I don't have to explain any further, I don't think. So, but the recession took Las Vegas by surprise.
It did.
Vegas, like everyone else, got hit harder, and it's taken them a little bit longer to recover because guess what? We don't have enough snow plows to pull out all the blizzard that just hit Vegas, called the recession. That's like Mayor Lindsay days. So here we go. We're back. We're doing much, much, much better. It took a little bit longer, which is okay because maybe when that happens, you have a stronger mentality on what could possibly happen and appreciate what you do have. And I love that. So Vegas for me has and continues to be an incredible platform for my messaging. I would like to expand in the future. I don't know if New York is, because that's all the way on the other side of the country, but I'm definitely looking into some opportunities, always am. But I'm perfectly happy doing what I do. I spend a lot of my time spreading the word of sustainability. I was just at Google the other day talking on the campus, and then I went to iTunes the following day talking about ground fisheries, showing them some examples of delicious fish, cooking some clams to show them how you can eat lower on the trophic scale and it's still delicious and people enjoy it. And then talking about fad-free tuna. That's a whole other subject that we don't have time about probably. But FAD, free tuna, you're gonna hear about that. Anyway, that's how I got in the middle of Sin City.
Cooking fish in the middle of the desert.
Well, I got to tell you, for a guy who was afraid of public speaking, you've made a good career getting out there and spreading the word.
Well, it was instilled in me from Eugene Bernard about we're privileged, and the respect. And there should be a certain amount of respect that goes with that privilege of getting great food. And I've watched food dilute itself for so many years. I can't get a strawberry that tastes like a strawberry anymore. You give me big bags of arugula that look beautiful, they don't taste like pepper. Cut it out. Let's stand up ourselves. We want a peach that tastes like a peach again. But
let's put the flavor back in food.
Yeah, aquaculture, great. I want flavor in my aquaculture. I'm like, I'm that crazy guy in the corner going, all right, it's a good celebration. I'll give you the golf clap on that one because we're going in the right direction. But whoa, folks, we got a ways to get back to real food. The flavors that I experienced when I was that kid with a stick in Lansing, Michigan farm, eating a fig off a tree that's still warm from the sun, making me want to go, what the hell just happened in my mouth? That's what food's supposed to do. It's supposed to make you tell stories. You bite into a peach, you go, oh my God, this reminds me of, and that reminds me, or that reminds me. Food memories are the strongest, most emotionally driven memories. Your olfactory is just like the smell of a perfume that you haven't smelled in 10 years that your grandmother used to wear. Reminds you of that sitting next to her, or, watching TV on Sunday night or whatever. It's just, it's who we are. It's what makes us, every inch, every atom of our body is something that we consumed or something we were exposed to.
Well, you were so right.
Let's pay attention to that. We're more concerned about the gasoline that we put in our car. We don't mind removing a species from the ecosystem, yet we would never pull the car over to the side of the road and yank a piece of the engine out and throw it to the side of the road and expect it to run the same. That's insane. But when you pull something out of the ecosystem, the same thing happens. Emulate it, celebrate it, have fun with it, So I guess I got off track. I mean, we're
off track, and we got to motor on too. But we have loved speaking with you, Rick. First, before we go, give us. We're going to have you back, Bo. rickmoonen.com website, Twitter Rick Moonen, Moonen, and Facebook Chef Rick Moonen. Right?
Yep.
Instagram Chef Moonen. Well, we've been over the moonin having you on today.
Listen, it was so nice to be able to catch up with you. We do have to go, but we'd love to have you back and continue the conversation. Can we do that sometime in the near future?
Oh, please. We just scratched the surface, guys.
And I know
tell those Vegas people to fly us out there, and we'll do a show from Vegas.
Well, we'd love to do that. That would be fun.
Right.
Listen, I know our producer's mad at us because we're running a little bit over, but Rick, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show today and talking about everything that we talked about. You're such a great ambassador for sustainability and what you preach. So it's really been a pleasure, and we look forward to having you back.
I miss you guys. Thank you so much.
Great to talk to you, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Ransom and Melanie Young on the Connected Table Live. We will talk to you again next week with another wonderful show. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.